Blast.
Me?
Yeah.
Why?
You know why? Because I'm gonna tell you why in a sec when I
Because
put you out on blast.
because I said something about Lucas's ability to play Mario.
Oh no, even worse. That has not just just wait till I put you on blast.
Oh no.
Yeah, definitely putting you on blast.
Oh, Jen's there. What's up?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Can I crash this party?
Yeah, you can join us. Absolutely. Here you go. Wow. You can put it here too.
Okay.
So this is number 3. I almost said 4. But this time we've got some additions and this will be fun. My brother and I had this idea to do some live videos, and let's see here. Well, this was our idea. We should just do something in Advent season because it's Christmas time. Why not? And we're all in lockdown in COVID in different capacities. So that makes sense. Right. Steve, what do you want to say about that? Is there anything to add?
I think that's about it. I mean, just a chance to, try and have a couple of chats because of how in the past people have said that when you and I riff, interesting things tend to happen. So this is just us trying to riff with people we know.
Yeah. And why not riff about Christmas? But we had the idea of doing the 4 Advent virtues, which are peace. Where's peace last week?
Love, joy, peace, and patience, kindness, goodness.
No,
that's not. That's not
Hope.
it at all.
Hope, peace, love. That's where we're at.
Right, we're at love.
Yeah.
Who's got the 5th screen?
So that's me. And I'll explain some other time.
And you can hide it, right?
Yeah, you can
John
hide it.
Can choose.
I hit it on my screen.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
It's hidden already.
Okay.
Don't worry, there's no one like Zoom bombing us or anything.
Okay.
But put put the link on the chat. I want to share it with friends and people. I know some people who are waiting to join.
Here we go.
And so do that. It's great to have.
Already did it.
Part. All right, look at you.
There it is.
Hey,
Okay.
everybody. So there's people still joining in.
There we
I'm
go.
sure.
So now, all right, here we go. So, but this time we've expanded it. The first time was just my brother and I. Last week we included Julio, but now we also have Spencer and Jen. This is fantastic, but we probably should introduce just a little bit. So, Spencer, who are you, and what's your Christmas background or experience?
I am currently a student at Penn State, but it is Zoom University. I've grown up celebrating Christmas, so it's not new per se, but yeah, I don't think Christmas would be new for anyone,
Right.
at least in America, where it's
You'd be shocked.
Yeah.
yeah.
But you're in this creative spot, though, of when you go to college, you start asking different questions about your faith than you used to.
Mm-hmm.
So probably Christmas is evolving for you as well.
Yeah, to some extent, I'd say. I think.
Yeah, not in a bad way. It's all good. What about Jen? You want to introduce anything about yourself?
Sure. I am a high school math teacher. I have spent my life doing camp and youth ministry in various ways. Like 20 plus years or so. Christmas is one of our favorite holidays, in particular, the Advent season. Because as a family, we take time each night to stop and think about the virtues of the season, as well as just pray together as a family, read some scripture. So this is a really special time where we actually are intentional about getting slow. Even if it's like rush, stop, and then rush again.
Yeah. Well, here's what we're going to do. Thank you. We're going to break it down into 4 parts. What I thought was first 15 minutes, we should talk about the Christmas story. how it's been special for us, what it means to us. But then the second 15 minutes, we'll talk about love as it relates to the Christmas story. The third 15 minutes, we'll talk about what's the opposite of love. Oh, no. I'm getting a phone call. Stop that for a moment. So the third 15 minutes, we'll talk about whatever's the opposite of love, which is that hate? Is that apathy? How does that mix with the Christmas story? And then the whole time we'll tell people to leave a comment, and then we'll see if we can reply to some people's comments or questions at the end.
And with that note, don't forget to leave a comment.
So hands down, you have the nicest tree that's visible in all of ours.
Where's yours, John? Where's yours? Last week you brought a tree.
I don't have a tree this time. I decided to bring a friend.
Yes.
Oh no.
So his name is Ezekiel, but we'll call him Zeke for short. I'm not sure if he's an elf or a gnome, but I thought that's a nice addition. Steve, what's that face for?
He's very bearded. That's all.
I know. It's almost comical because he doesn't have any eyes.
And that's saying a lot coming from a Chaffee boy, right? That he's
What?
very bearded. I feel like you guys all do a lot of beard happening, right?
This is weaponized apathy. That's all this is.
Ew.
What? It's just it is 100% easier not to shave than it is to shave.
Oh. Do you agree, Spencer?
Yeah, I would say so. I don't have as much going on as you guys do.
Just give it time.
So let's get started with this question. What's your favorite Christmas story? Oh, go ahead, Julio.
No, I'm gonna put. I told you, dude. I'm gonna put you out on blast, man. Throwing you under the bus, dude.
Okay.
No, go ahead. I'm gonna let you get your icebreaker question, and then I'm gonna put you on blast.
That's fine.
Because, I mean, what's today's topic?
Love.
Love. You know, he invites. Well, I mean, initially it was just me and 3 other guys talking about love. I mean, that's why I had to bring my wife in, dude. Like, how we can't get in depth on love without having the perspective of a female plus a mom.
That's a great point.
Putting you on blast.
No, you
Putting
put
you
me
on
to
blast.
shame.
I'm not a
There
mom.
we go.
We're not in the business of shaming.
we're
though.
not. We're
Well,
not.
yeah, okay. But you are absolutely right. We did actually talk about Mother Mary a bit last time.
We did. We brought her in.
And so actually what we did was like the definition of mansplaining, I guess, last time, if we had 3 guys talking about what motherhood was thinking.
Yes.
That actually makes me feel really bad.
So now, John, you asked what is our favorite Christmas story. Now, you mean like personal story or like a book?
No, I'm sorry. Maybe I misspoke. I was more thinking favorite Christmas song.
Oh,
sorry.
Oh, song. Good.
Oh, yeah. Got one.
You do?
I do. And one that most people don't like. Little Drummer Boy. I love Little Drummer Boy.
Really?
I do.
That's your favorite?
And I think it's so beautiful. Like it like reaches I don't just get down with the pum-pums. I think
Right.
So it might have to do with a little bit there's a little bit of history in it. And back in Puerto Rico, the Spanish version of it, and I would play the Little Drummer Boy, and so they would put me
Oh, that's
in
cool.
these like ripped up, beat up clothes, and like here I am, like a poor boy, which I was, so the part played well, and parappa pum pum, and then when I got to like kind of get the lyrics and hear it, and just like, so like here I am, like this is all I have to offer, and this is I played my best for him, parappa pum pum.
Yeah.
And then there's the people who are like, well, Little Drummer Boy wasn't in scripture. He didn't make it a nativity scene. I don't know.
Neither did the donkey.
Right. But that's, it's what we do. We pick the things we want to rip apart and be like,
Neither did the Magi.
I don't know. Was that an Advent song?
Well, how many parents would also be glad that a drummer comes and drums right next to their newborn baby?
Right. It's like, hey, Little Drummer Boy, you need to be a little,
Yeah. Hey, Little Drummer Boy, my baby needs to sleep.
Right.
You wake him, you take him.
Is that a term?
That's what we used to say at camp.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
If
You wake
staff
'em,
or
you take
students
'em?
would wake our children.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
that's a very common in the parenting world. And especially once
See why you need the woman's perspective?
It's absolutely right.
Hmm.
Spence, what's your favorite
I
Christmas song?
I was thinking about it. I don't.
Well, as a cellist, as somebody who plays the cello, is there like one that stands out musically then? Maybe not lyrically?
I think that part of the reason that I did "O Come, O Come, Emmanuel," the lyrics are really good, but B, I would definitely say that like the chords on "Rejoice, Rejoice" are just like they're awesome. They tug right at your heart. I thought that was like that was really cool, and having like the violin and the cello together was a good combo.
Right.
I'm trying to think when it comes to like kind of like lyrics and like emotional impact. I'm gonna have to go with Silent Night just because it has like this long standing
That's
tie to our candlelight service, and like I mean, it's gonna be heartbreaking not to be there
Yeah.
this year because I think for 13, 14 years it's been the same. Like we've done the exact same thing the like Christmas Eve every year, where you like
Right.
you come and the lights are extinguished and you raise your candle and singing Silent Night, and it's just a really powerful experience.
And
Yeah.
now, what if we all in our homes, right around midnight, just had our candles, and instead of just lighting in little churches, just lit around wherever you may be? Just
Yeah.
somebody get a drone aerial shot of that.
Right.
Oh,
That'd
in
be very
Military.
cool.
Yeah. Steve, what's your favorite?
I have become increasingly curmudgeonly in my 31 years or so, whatever it is. So slow and ponderous hymns are big fans. I'm big fans of them. So I think probably In the Bleak Midwinter. If you're pushing me for a Christmas one. Yeah.
In the Bleak Midwinter?
Yeah.
Can
Has
you,
some great
what are
lines
the
to it.
lyrics to that one? I don't think I know them off by heart.
Oh, really? Well, at least the opening bit. In the bleak midwinter, frosty wind made moan. Earth stood hard as iron, water like a stone. And snow had fallen, snow on snow, snow on snow. In the bleak midwinter, long, long ago.
I
That just
love
sounds like the weather.
of that song. I love the second verse, like or maybe the third verse. The heaven cannot hold him, nor the earth sustain. Heaven and earth will flee away when he comes to reign. Like
Wow.
that's a cool lyric. Just the idea that like God incarnate because heaven couldn't hold him, and then it references Matthew where it talks about like like heaven and earth will fall away, like
Wow.
to reveal the new heaven and the new earth. Like anyway, yeah, I'm
Like I say, yeah.
I'm right there with you.
And yeah, it does. It definitely. There's a spike between verse 1 and verse 2. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, mhm,
Definitely does something. Yeah.
yeah.
Julio, you're
yours,
about
Tom?
to say something?
No, I mean, I have another song, and I know I used my turn on little drummer boy.
Little Drummer Boy?
But I mean, I love Christmas songs, and I do love the hymns, and I love the traditionals, and yes, I do cry at "O Silent Night," and I do raise my candle. But I'm also a huge fan of Trans-Siberian Orchestra. If you know that, Old
You
City
like the
Bar,
rockin' versions?
Old
Okay.
City Bar. Now, though they may not be playing it much at churches, Old City Bar is fire. Check it out.
Old City Bar?
Old City Bar. Yes. And it talks about just as the child comes and talking about like the strangers that are right outside the door and being, it's pretty.
Oh.
I'm going to leave that as that. And Jen, I'll let you share.
I was going to say you're all talking about these like rich theological Christmas and Advent songs, which I do love. Love Silent Night. Oddly enough, the Handel's Messiah, it rings a bit Christmas for me.
Oh
Yeah.
Because I mean, though it's more celebrated at Easter time. My high school growing up, every Christmas, that was our Christmas concert. We would do an hour and a half of selections, full orchestra and choir and soloists doing Handel's Messiah. And there's, I mean, so many of the prophetic words for John the Baptist and things like that are arias. He shall feed his flock like a shepherd, or prepare ye, talking about the the
Yeah.
rough made smooth and the crooked made straight. And so many of those songs, every time we read the passages of scripture leading up to Advent, that's what comes to me. But I'll say if I had to pick like just a favorite Christmas song to listen and sing, it's Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. And
But that's a classic. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it makes my heart just feel full, like of all the Christmas feelings of friends and family, near and dear, and like the idea that when you're just kind of taking in Christmas, you can let your heart be light, even if not for just a moment. So it's just a sweet song and always like stirs me.
Fun fact about Merry Christmas that I learned while living in this country being Scotland. Apparently, for an older generation of folk, having Merry Christmas connotes having had plenty to drink. So more folk here, you're likely to hear have a happy Christmas than have a Merry Christmas, because Merry is associated with, quite well.
Water.
Well, I mean, they were all put to old drinking songs anyway. All the hymns.
That's right. Old Testament.
So, Steve, you had the idea that we should maybe take a look at the Magnificat in Luke 4. So,
yeah, sorry, it's actually in 2. I got confused.
Oh,
Luke 4 is
well, sorry, yeah.
when Jesus
Would
reached
you mind? Could you introduce it and then read it?
Sure. The Magnificat is the song that Mary, or it's the song that's sort of put on the lips of Mary shortly after she visits Elizabeth, and Elizabeth's baby jumps in her womb, recognizing that Jesus is in Mary. And I especially love it because it has a turn about halfway through, and we'll see if you can determine where that turn is. So it reads like this. And Mary said, "My soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God, my Savior. He has looked with favor on the lowliness of his servant. Surely from now on, all generations will call me blessed. For the Mighty One has done great things for me, and holy is his name. His mercy is for those who fear him from generation to generation. He has shown the strength with his arm. He has scattered the proud with the thoughts of their hearts. He has brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away empty. He has helped his servant Israel in remembrance of his mercy, according to the promise he made to our ancestors, to Abraham and to his descendants forever." And there are versions of it put to music which are stunning. One of them most recently that I've learned about is called the Canticle of the Turning, which to my knowledge is sort of done as initially as a sort of folksy version of it. That is just, there's something about it that is especially striking, the way the Canticle of the Turning is put out musically.
I couldn't actually find it.
It's
It's
in
actually
Luke.
Luke 1.
Oh,
Luke
sorry, Luke
1.
1. Yeah.
It's actually the end of Luke
46.
1.
I was doing that.
Scrambling, too.
Okay.
Doing that thing in in church when you're like scrolling through. I was like, I got it wrong. I'm all wrong.
It's like when the verses in chapter are wrong in the bulletin and everybody's
Right. That's what
awkwardly looking around at each other.
there's someone chuckling in the ground, like, I know where that is, and they're wrong. Now, the Magnificat, Mary's song, not to be confused with the now very controversial Mary Did You Know? But anyways.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw a great meme that it was a sort of Catholic meme that started with the lyrics, "Mary, did you know?" And then there's a sort of, dashes as if to say it was interrupted. And it says, "Oh, yes, you do. Gabriel told her." And you're like, oh, boy, of course.
You didn't know.
Or like, yeah.
They had an
There you
idea.
go. Yep.
It's really good.
Mm.
So we can keep that in the back of the mind, but let's then do the second set of 15 minutes. How do you understand Christian love in light of the Christmas story? Maybe even in light of Magnificat. What is love at Christmas time for you? Because it's definitely not like Valentine's Day. It's not that type of love at Christmas time. Let's come up with some definitions of love.
While we're thinking, just shout out to those who are watching live. Put those messages and those questions down on the, comment.
What do you think love is?
What's love got? No, that's not it. Do with it.
I think I've always enjoyed this one definition. It says love seeks the good of the other.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's it. What's that face, Steve?
Because there's another version of it that adds a little bit to it that I think is even better. Where
Go
it
ahead.
says love seeks the good of the other as other.
How does that change it? What does that add?
Meaning you're seeking the good of the, again, capital O, other, precisely to the extent that they are other than you are, not just in a way that might become self-referential and selfish.
Oh, that actually still ends up benefiting you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I do think whatever is good for someone else is ultimately good for anyone. Like anybody, we should always celebrate good happening to someone, but not for the end goal of it always being back to us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What I like about that, what I said, seeking the good of the other, is that it doesn't even necessarily mean that the other person needs to know about it. It doesn't acknowledge that like somebody has to obviously know it. So like leaving a note or like fixing somebody's flat tire without them knowing, I don't know how you do that, but
I want to challenge everybody out there to go out to a random person and change their tire during this Christmas Advent season. Thank you, John.
And make sure you do it while singing In Bleak Midwinter.
I mean, I'm thinking, random acts of kindness or something like that. Like there are those things that are kind to people that you don't know, and you're just trying to share with, like, I don't know, being in a drive-through and getting up to the window and it's like, oh, somebody paid for you, like
oh,
that.
Yeah.
Then you're anonymous. You never even met the person, but were kind of given this gift. It definitely has a moment, but love, I think, you can love people in that way. You can love people that are strangers, but there is a certain love for people that are kin, that, or like chosen or biological, that I think is like a deep love that you can just see at Christmas time, right? Like the epitome of God loving people. And the closest I think that we can get to that is loving those who are dearest to us. For me, becoming a mother was the first time that I experienced, in meeting and falling in love and marrying my husband, there was a great amount of love in that. And then having a child, it's like, what was love? Like as good and rich and deep. And then that helps me understand love of him even better.
Wow.
Just this absolute selfless, like, it's not about me, that I will lay myself bare before all. No one has to see me, so that you can live your life to the fullness and best, and hopefully be a kind and loving person as well. Like that's, the goal.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what she said.
I was like, yeah, nobody can beat that. That was amazing. But it's interesting that it was created out of a previous love. That's interesting too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's almost like love always wants to beget more love.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the same way that hurt begets hurt, right?
Oh, that's good too.
Hurt people. Loved people.
Dr. Phil up
loved
on
people.
Returning Dr. Phil. Yeah, it's loved people, healed people, heal people, hurt people.
Yeah.
We do what we do.
Yeah.
What about being a dad, Julio?
Yeah, I think we hit up on last week a bit, and I think I'd mentioned something like having a child just brings a new level of like new nightmares and things like that. But in the same way, like being a father brings another layer, I want to say, of love. So, and we could go back to our junior high, high school days of our first love, of our first, loves or whatnot. And just, I feel like if maybe many of us, maybe I'm the only fool that back in the day I thought I'd marry that first girlfriend or something, and then it's like, well, that was a horrible thought. And then, but love like goes deeper as we get older, as maturity hits and in different stages of life. And then I met Jen, hey, but, being engaged brought another level of understanding love. Being married brought another level, another layer. It changed who I am, who I was, the ministries that I've been part of. And really, John, it's funny when we joking early about having Jen part of this is part of why it came to mind, because there's no other human being that's shown me love like Jen has shown me love, like a greater understanding of love, like, and that love that does not seek self, that is forgiving, in a way that I cannot understand. I'm still learning, above and beyond my issues and everything, and I'm like, I cannot comprehend how this person. I mean, we're married for 12 plus years. Can you imagine being married to this for that long? Like, it takes a level of love. But for real though, it is. And so when you add children to that, it's incredible. Yeah.
And I was going to say, as you're talking about this definition of love, in terms of a marriage relationship, people have talked about like, oh, marriage is 50-50. And I would challenge that and say it's 100-100.
Yeah.
Like if you don't give the other person 100%, then the marriage is lacking. Then your relationship is lacking. Then your love is lacking. The whole passage in 1 Corinthians where love keeps no record of wrong and does not envy and does not boast. Like, I mean, to have that kind of love, that takes work, that takes time, that takes dedication and commitment and willingness to say you're wrong when you're wrong. And
yeah,
I've heard it said like love is at the same time the strongest and the most fragile thing.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
What about Steve or Spencer? What do you think? What do you got?
Spencer?
I don't know. I would. I can't speak at all to what Julio and Jen were just talking about. But I don't know. I read something recently that I liked a lot that was talking about how like love demands vulnerability. And so like, and being loved demands vulnerability. And so like that can kind of sometimes be difficult for people. And yeah, like I've felt that before, like opening up to friends, opening up to parents, whatnot. I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to do that sometimes, but I think that like you were saying, like the 100-100 type thing, which I mean, I guess you could apply that to just relationships broadly. I would say like if you're in a place where you trust the person, then yeah, it is easy, and that is like true love, whether it's romantic or platonic or child parent, that kind of thing. Yeah.
I think it was quite rightly pointed out that there's something to do with effort involved with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm a little suspicious sometimes of effortless love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe it's just me having seen enough Hallmark holiday love rom-coms to just be like, come on, guys, what is this about? But yeah, no, I think there's something to it. And this is a sort of tangent I get on with the youth group as well, that part of what's involved in any kind of loving relationship is like the willingness for persons to be angry with each other. Like arguably, I'd much rather somebody be angry with me who loves me, a community or an individual person, because there's something better to that kind than a sort of blind anger.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
it also kind of like bounces off of like the opposite being apathy in that case, because like in the example you just gave, like someone who is apathetic wouldn't care enough to be angry. And so like love seeks what's best in the other person, and if what's best, like if in doing so that requires you to be like, hey, I think that what you're doing either hurt me or is hurting you, like love intervenes. Yeah.
Well, a lot of it, I mean, part of that comes from the bits in the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible that I've read, that depict God as very angry. And there are points where quite a lot of people will lob the complaint. I think people who have been raised on something too close to moral therapeutic deism will say, "Oh, look at that. That's not a very loving God." And you're like, "Actually, I think that's a very loving God who can be open enough to be like, no, this is wrong. This is inappropriate. This is whatever you want to say."
Yeah.
And it's part of how, like, I would rather a church community that I belong to be the one that chastises me than the faceless internet, because we've seen the sort of vehemence that can come from that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can get really angry with my children. Really angry, like
We're right now.
I mean, but it does not change my love for them. It just means you're not living up to who I know that you could be. That this is not the way things are meant to go, and so though my anger might not always be righteous anger, or like I may have fault in my own angry moments, but I mean, I get that. I get the anger that God would have toward people that constantly turn from him and choose another way and look for shortcuts and look for better on the other side.
I think in my life, I have people that I, in our family, friends, that I get angry, upset, but like, it's hard for people to understand that it's okay to get angry, right? It's okay to get frustrated, because it, usually it means like, oh, you must not like me, love me. No, I get frustrated because I do. If not, I would care less, right? Like I'm just like whatever, Yeah.
Well, one thing that I was noticing just now was like looking back over these Christmas virtues. So the first one was hope, then peace, then love and joy. It's interesting because love, the first two aren't emotions. Like hope and peace, they're not often understood as emotions, but then love here is. And so already we've had more like emotional vocabulary than the first two ones that we did. Joy is going to be a little bit emotional as well, but it's interesting that here love is being considered a virtue and that joy will be considered a virtue. And I don't know, right now I'm just kind of like rolling over what's the difference then in understanding love as a virtue rather than love as just an emotion. I don't know. Any thoughts? My brain is going places now. Love is a virtue.
So John, just for clarity of conversation, will you define what you feel a virtue is?
Oh God.
I mean, you asked the question.
I know, right? I kind of understand virtues as like a guide rail or guiding principles that maybe take an intentional commitment to continue in. You almost like in the barriers when you're driving on the road, they're there and you can actually crash right through them if you wanted to. You just steer hard enough into it. But these exist in some sense to protect you and other people. And so maybe it'd be interesting if love is a virtue, how does it help protect me in a good way? How does it help protect other people in a good way? How is love a guide rail for our life not to go completely chaotic and off the rails? Let me look up a Catholic definition of virtue. I'd be curious.
While you're doing that, I think back to like the definition of sin you gave when I was in high school that I liked, which was like sin is loving the wrong things too much, or maybe you could shorten that and just saying kind of misplaced love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or unhealthy love. I like that a lot. I think that like, yeah, if we understand love as a virtue, then like, well, what would not be virtuous is to be in love with the wrong things. I don't know. I don't know what else to add to that, but yeah.
Well, it's helpful. I mean, unless you've got a really poor definition of sin, you'll just actually think I'm sinning if I'm breaking the cultural norms of
exactly. It takes,
and that's not exactly what sin is.
It totally gets at the difference between like legalism and kind of like adhering to a set of rules and like kind of getting at the heart, which is I think like much more important. I think it's definitely what God like what God cares more about.
Okay. I was going to say, I feel like love is, if I think about it in a marriage context, love is both an emotion and it's a choice.
Wow.
So I have committed my life. I promised that I would love him and be faithful to him and honor him for the rest of my life. And there are days that I feel within the depths of my soul that, oh my gosh, I love him so much. And then there are moments where I might be upset or we're not connecting right. And I still have to say, I have chosen and I will choose today to do all the things I can to love him well. That I'm, and the way that plays out for us is that we don't yell at each other. We don't leave the room on each other. We don't, like we talk through things. If we need a break, we can take a break, but I promise to be here. I'm not walking out the door. I'm not sleeping on the couch. I'm not whatever, like I choose you. We might not be in the best place that feels loving right now, but I love you. And this is where we are.
And that's why it's hard for like what I mentioned earlier. Like I learn new levels of love, right? And we continue to add the layers because I'm like, I can't comprehend that. I cannot comprehend that I may consider myself a screw up and yet she still chooses to love me, right? When I struggle to love me, she loves me. So can you imagine God's love for humanity, for creation,
right,
in that way? Because I believe that the three of you are still in the non-marriage stage of life, right? And when we entered marriage, we said, you know what? We have seen so many examples of broken homes and broken marriages, and I came from a split home and things like that. And I said, we're going to show the world that marriage, like, because we love each other, right? And we're so in love. Man, if we look back at the people we were 12 years ago, dude, those kids didn't know anything. No. So then to me, like, I just bring it back. Then like I'm learning from this person. And then there's God, who I understand to be absolute love, right?
Oh yeah.
A greater love than this person provides for me. And I'm like, I'm constantly just trying to comprehend.
Yeah.
And you raised a point that I got a comment about anyway, that we've spoken of love broadly as sort of something that comes from us or goes from us to others, but not the flip side, namely about how people accept or choose not to accept love from others, which is perhaps an especially timely discussion point, given the kinds of spikes we're seeing in mental health, because of COVID, but also B, because of, was it more than probably 8-9 months ago, I think. Imposter syndrome was not parlance, was not common language, but I've heard it quite a few times in the last certainly year or so.
Imposter syndrome as it refers to like just kind of like in-group, out-group.
Yeah, or folk who are in various positions that they are in and feel like they are imposters there.
Okay.
And subsequently don't necessarily accept or can't in some ways accept the kinds of love that people want to give them because they go, no, I can't possibly, no, because
Like-
they feel again a sense of existential impostership.
Yeah. It's like, cause it's like an arm of self-worth.
Mm-hmm. Surely.
So I looked up real quick. I looked up the definition of virtue that the Catholic Church has been using for 2,000 years, and it says a habitual and firm disposition to do the good. It probably could be shortened just to a habitual and firm disposition. It's interesting to think then about hope and peace, and now love, and then next week joy, as being habits that you have to work on and cultivate. That's kind of crazy. But then also you have to have a firm disposition. Like, I'm consciously choosing to do this thing as a repeated habit for the rest of my life. That's pretty wild.
The thing on my heart right now, and old school songs, the song "They Will Know We're Christians by Our Love," and
Yeah.
I just feel right now, unfortunately, I don't know that we're living up to that. I think, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna throw that out there and see what y'all think, because I'm like, and I'll speak for myself and my realm and my areas of influence. I feel like what I've experienced is that we're being categorized or known by what we hate and what we dislike and what we don't approve of,
What we're against.
And
Yeah.
I don't know that that's God's heart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would definitely agree with that, Julio, and I would kind of pass that question off to Steve because that seems like definitely something that I could say about like American Christianity, but like I feel like in Scotland or in Europe it might be a completely different story, and so I would love to hear what you think about, like, do you feel the same way?
No, I don't actually, not necessarily with it, because I was mindful today. Our church is doing a food drive through Advent, a sort of reverse Advent thing, and I heard from one of the families who's involved with being the drop-off point for it, that in prior years they were sending about a carload of stuff to the food bank, like once a week, once every 2 weeks. And apparently this year it's up to like 2 carloads a week or so of just like cans of food that are just going and dry goods that are going. So there are ways in which I think, love is being made known by what they're doing. But I think there's also, again, Scottish context is still varied, like you'd find in the US, just in a different way, because the US geographically is just gigantic compared to Scotland. However, there are quite a lot of different kinds of churches shoved into a very small area. Right?
Yeah.
And it would be, I think, unhelpful to say that they're all operating the same way. But certainly my context, there is quite a lot that's done in the way of concrete action towards others. Like we also had a gift service today that had gifts that were purchased to go to families who maybe couldn't afford them, all underneath the Christmas tree in the sanctuary. However, I do think there is still, we've hit on this again, this being defined by what you sort of disapprove of or dislike or hate or something. And I think that still would be a comment to refer back to what I mean with there's a point for correction, I'll say more broadly, but that I think one of the fundamental problems facing parts of like U.S. Christianity is that that side has been sort of telegraphed out, and so it's sort of misplaced when that's sort of the sort of vehemence that's being shown there is just unhelpfully so, but it's telegraphed out rather than being sort of properly oriented and delimited, in its proper proportion to being able to say to people within your in-group in trusted context that like what you did was a mistake, rather than saying all the sort of vehemence of like, you're just wood for the fire. Like that just seems a bit over the top, guys. I'm just mindful. So maybe I should say I'm mindful when it comes to conversations about what being defined by what you're against, that there's a lot of vehemence from the prophets, and it's almost always directed at the Israelites.
Yeah.
It's very rarely directed outside the in-group. And I think there's most certainly something that's lost about that when people proof text it.
So then I'm led to think about if love is a habit and a firm disposition, it's good to do canned dried goods. I'm not saying that that type of action is bad. However, it's interesting that love is the virtue, not action. And I understand that they're very close to each other. I understand one can flow from one another. However, the Christmas story, as I understand it, it's not about giving cans away, because you can also do that for the wrong reasons. You can do that so you can have the camera on you. And so then there's the idea of a disposition, that there's like a firm resolve within you that your external actions are grounded and fueled by love, and not by something else. I feel like the Sermon on the Mount does that pretty interesting. Jesus takes sin and changes it from external actions to like the motivations within you. And maybe it'd be one thing to also think like God could also do really nice things for us, but it's God's own habit and God's own internal disposition to do things for us out of love. I was like, that's interesting as well. Yeah. So let's start to wrap it up. We'll ask anybody there to please make a comment wherever this is going out, and we'll try to respond to them. But maybe let's bring it home to love in the Christmas story, love in the nativity, love and the birth of Jesus.
Say this, we talked about the Magnificat, and as I read it, like again, I continue to love one of the themes that I see throughout it, and it's this leveling out the playing field. When talking about, I get lost all up in here. That my spirit rejoices in God, for he has looked with favor on the lowliness of his servant. Surely now I'm trying to find the good where I was reading earlier. He has brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away empty. He has helped his servant Israel in remembrance of his mercy. Oh,
Yeah.
I think.
Well, it reminds me of the and this is just on my mind because I know that the Found Wandering concert is going on either, I guess, concurrently or after this. I'm not sure.
After this, it starts at 7.
Okay. Well, I was thinking about the song that they sing, which I know that they didn't write. I just don't know who actually wrote it, but like the Rebel Jesus. And then there's like a line in that says like, and maybe give a little to the poor should the generosity seize us. But if anyone asks the question why they're poor, they'll get the same as the Rebel Jesus. Like, and so yeah, that just kind of tying back into the yeah, like a canned food drive is awesome, but to do what the Magnificat is doing, and ask questions about the nature of the society we've set up, like can land you in some serious trouble in your.
On that, very interestingly today, our minister made a connection between the Magnificat, because that was one of the sort of readings for the day, and the year of Jubilee from the Hebrew Bible. So the sort of 50-ish year reset of everything, like debt and whether or not you were an indentured servant, and I mean, a whole host of other things that, like, if you could imagine debt relief of that kind, debt alone, never mind other kinds of relief that's involved with it, would be pretty profound, even if difficult to work out. I have gotten another comment as well, I think is well made, about love in the space of gray areas, because gray areas would become very uncomfortable. And in those uncomfortable moments, groups and individuals are more likely to revert to us, them sort of politics, for lack of a better word. So there is something that love takes, perhaps, like we were talking about with virtue, a sort of principled disposition towards saying, like, even in uncomfortable moments, when your tendency to meet the anxiety of the moment is to close down, means to have a sort of principled pose towards vulnerability.
Steve, did you get a comment about that?
I paraphrased a bit and added a bit more, but yeah.
Because I got a comment from somebody asking about that. Yeah, it says, could you comment on the vulnerability and love that seems to be required when answers are not easily black and white? That is to say that gray area causes us to be uncomfortable. And when we're uncomfortable, we tend towards blame instead of love. Yeah.
Yeah, which again, it's sort of in-group, out-group conversations. Yeah.
Well, I think the comment was also about disagreement. It's important to have disagreement with love. Julio, are you thinking? It looks like it.
Oh, definitely thinking, and also juggling the kids who want to make cookies.
Oh, that's all.
We're halfway through the process. We have to cut them out.
Good.
And I'm like, children, be gone. We're here trying to speak about love.
Get out of my sight.
How does that truly awful phrase go? Children are to be seen but not heard, or something like that. How awful is that?
It's awful.
Yeah, right?
Man, kids are messy. Kids are, life gets messy. John, what could you just...
Love is messy, but go ahead.
Run that back. The vulnerability.
Yeah, it's that when we get into conversations, often there's gray area. It's hard to have conversations. They're strict black and white. It's easy to see who's wrong, right? But in that reason, since a lot of conversations and disagreements are about gray matter or gray area topics, you need to have vulnerability and love there in order to have a fruitful conversation. But we also did get a comment from a guy named Charles.
Good old Charles.
He's below me, I think.
He's probably below you. It's his dad. But he said, what is our favorite story that illustrates Jesus's radical love? Oh, that's a good one. He says that his favorite is the woman at the well. That's a great question. What do you think? What's your favorite story of Jesus's radical love?
The one that first comes to mind is the woman caught in adultery.
Yeah.
And just, totally going against what culturally would be the response at the time, and just, in providing defense for this woman, but in such a brilliant way to make others think differently, just saying, so have you not sinned? All right.
Oh, that's a great one.
I love that. And then it's a woman, and then this man who's a rabbi is standing up for her. I just love it.
One of my favorite things about that story, and this is purely on the level of like textual analysis, is that we don't know where it comes from. By which I mean it floats around and shows up in multiple gospels in different places, like chronology be forgotten about. It's in different places, which seems to suggest it was a story that was in the air that they just didn't want to leave behind, but couldn't find a place to put it. And so oftentimes you can actually just remove it from any one of the texts where it is, any one of its places, and it doesn't interrupt the thematic flow. So like it doesn't need to be there, but for some reason it is, which to me gives even more sort of credence to it having been an outright historical occurrence.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite of Radical Love. It's a flash forward. It's not at Christmas time, but it's when Jesus is hanging on the cross. This is the one that first came to my mind. First association is when he's being crucified and he says, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." Even as people are killing him, he's acting on their behalf.
Yeah.
And he's actually ascribing it not to hate, but to ignorance. It's like they just don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to talk about having radical love towards one another, if we could maybe stop thinking like, oh, they did this maliciously because they're a punk, and instead just be like, they didn't know any better. That's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
That's a hard one to live out. Yeah.
In the last book that I read by Brene Brown, she tells this story about someone she had to share a room with at a conference, and she was real annoyed and, goes through this whole thing. It's just super angry. And her husband comes back like, well, don't you think she was doing the best she could? And she reels against that, like, no, I think she was being rude and ignorant. But then the more she came across stories over the next week or two or more, she was like, I think people are doing the best they are.
Yeah.
With where they're at and what they have. Like with what I know and who I am and what I've experienced in my life, I am doing the best I can at every moment. So when I'm angry, it's the best I have at that moment. Hopefully in the next one I'll catch it sooner, but it is the best I got. So I think you're right. Like a lot, there's ignorance out there, but they're doing the best they have. And I think that in that loving that person, wow, that's the challenge, right?
I think for me that question is a little bit of all these pieces, right? That it's not a particular story per se, is the theme of constantly going against the status quo or going against the grain. That is that act of radical love that initially I feel like we would stand there like the Pharisees, right? And like, what? Point the finger there, right? And then Jesus like, nah, man, like, nah. Like, we got to show love to this person and the leper, and we got to heal here and there and on this day and at that moment. And so it's like, yes, thank you, for which then it's a greater example for me in how I act or what I hope to mold my life, just to love. I mean, outside of my comfort and outside of my realm of understanding and outside of what I think is lovable or where, I don't know.
Spencer, do you have any last words?
I mean,
You want to bring us home? We got 2
I don't have
minutes.
last words, but I would have
Words of wisdom by Spencer.
I would have agreed with Jen there about the woman in adultery when it comes to favorite stories about Jesus. But I mean, just to pick another one for the sake of conversation, I also like the story of Lazarus because it just says so. Like, I mean, we get back to the shortest verse in the Bible, that Jesus wept, and I think it just says a lot about the love that entailed, and like the willingness of Jesus to like be present with us in suffering, and how we we're called to mirror that, like with our loved ones, to be present with them in suffering. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a really cool example of the Christ love.
Spencer, do you remember the Christmas lesson I gave 2 years ago?
No.
At Sunday morning Sunday school?
Why would you put that on?
Like that. Put him on the spot.
Come on.
Spencer, remember that time? And he's like, nah, you weren't that good, bro. Like,
Like,
Yeah. It's like, you didn't bring us donuts that morning. I was tuned out.
dude.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I said that this is the shape of love is this. Let's see. It goes like this, and this. That's it. And it's the idea that we often live so much of life apart and then thinking we're higher than other people. But then the shape or the direction of love is to get off your high horse and be humble and associate with people rather than apart from them. The unlovable, the people that have nothing to give you, the least of these, the lost people, the last people.
Yeah.
The latest victims that have been crushed by something in society. Like, love actually always seeks to get off your high horse, get on their level, and associate with the other person.
That's the story of Christmas.
Yeah.
God became flesh,
Yeah.
dwell among them, and just spent his whole life loving and giving and pouring out himself unto death for people. So.
I love it. That's awesome. I think this is it.
Good way to
Let's see if
put it.
there's any last comments, but otherwise we're at time. And hey, Spencer, say thank you to this guy named Chuck that you know.
Yeah. I'm wondering when I'll see him next.
Okay.
I think he
Well,
brought.
we're
I
good.
think, yeah.
Is this the
Next
time
week is
where
the last one. What? Go ahead.
I was gonna say, is this the time where Steve sings us all out, or the new song?
Yeah.
Last week was the
Canticle
fruit of the
Returning.
spirit. Last week was the fruit of the spirit. What's this week, Steve?
How about one of those dirges?
This week is a controversial question. Does tinsel belong on your Christmas tree? Yes or no?
Yes.
I
No?
see some quick. I see some quick no's. I will
Is that
say.
an argument? Really?
I will say though, we do not put tinsel on the Christmas tree. I grew up with it.
I
and
did
so
too.
it's in my heart, and it's in maybe an 80s thing, or I don't know.
It's an 80s, 90s
But-
thing, I think.
My family's never done tinsel, and so I'm the opposite of that.
Right.
Are you saying like bring it?
I mean, I'm open to it. Let's say that.
I'm open to it.
Hey, I'm not gonna hate on it. Don't knock it till you try.
It definitely takes
Nice.
me back to the 80s, 90s for sure. But I'll say that if we're going tinsel, the proper way to tinsel your tree is 2 to 3 strands per branch. It's not like douse the thing in
No,
tinsel.
our tree was glowing more due to tinsel than lights.
Right.
You know, that's how you did it.
You just throw boxes.
And then because it was a fake tree, at the end you just throw away the whole fake tree, because what are you gonna do?
I mean, tinsel was like $1 a box, right?
Money bags over there. You have money for tinsel every year.
Oh, this is like a
It's such a
99 cent
mess.
for
You
like
can't-
12
I know,
pounds
that
of
was
it.
That
Tinsel.
was a joke. All right, we got to wrap it up. Thank you so much. Next week we'll
Cheers.
do the virtue of joy, and it's the last one before Christmas.
Yeah.
All right.
Joy to the world.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks.